for 3 touchdowns. What are your thoughts?
I would agree with that. I think that he'll I feel like he's going to have to. Jalen Samuels, who's the running back that they're going to go with, has been fine. He had 2 games last year that he started. He absolutely wrecked the Patriots, but then his second game, he only had like 6 or 7 yards on the ground. So they don't have a lot of depth there with Connor not playing. So in and of itself, they're going to have to throw the ball. He's not a short yardage type of back. So if they get on the 5-yard line, I would expect him to be throwing the ball. And that's, I think, what they're going to have to do. So 3 touchdowns seems sensible, if only because of the fact that I feel like that's what they're going to have to, that's where they're going to have to go. It's interesting that you speak about the defense. So the Steelers the last few seasons have been really, really good at getting after the quarterback. They've been number 1 in sacks, but they've been terrible at getting turnovers. Ever since they got Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Devin Bush, like they've switched completely to they had 15 total turnovers last season, and they have 19 already go after seven games. So they've been incredibly opportunistic. They've got after the quarterback. So yeah, I think that they're going to make Jacoby Brissett's day a little bit rough, especially considering T.Y. Hilton's not going to be there. Like that's a huge blow to the offense.
Oh, that's a huge blow. Certainly, we'll get into that later on in our NFL talk. Also, what a difference a year makes. Last year we were looking at Bell and Connor, and Bell getting moved around, and then Connor just saying, "Hey, I own this. This is my spot." Now we look at Bell at the Jets, maybe even being traded yet again, and we look at Connor not being able to play. I also think Rudolph's going to throw for 300 yards tomorrow. The Steelers not having Ben Roethlisberger under center. Due to his ability to throw the ball at ease. But on the other hand, their offense has changed a little bit. So I think Rudolph could throw for 300 yards. And this might be a good year if you got a good week, I should say, if you've got a quarterback on bye and you've got Rudolph just sitting on your bench to fill in the bye week. This might be the week that you might want to throw him in there for a bye week type situation. But I certainly think he could easily throw for 300 yards tomorrow.
I would agree. No, Pierre Desir is out as well. Is what I hear, right? So who's going to come in? Obviously, you have the Darius Leonard, but Justin Houston. Who else is somebody that if you're the Steelers defense, or offense that you're really concerned about on the Indy side?
I got a brain fart there. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. The other reason why I would say play Rudolph as your fantasy quarterback this week, maybe to fill in for one of your buys, is I think he's going to get a rushing touchdown. I mean, dating back to his days with Oklahoma State, Rudolph has never been known for his mobility. As the starter of the Steelers, though, he hasn't shown any signs of improvement in that area in this game, which isn't a knock on him at all. But I just think unfortunately, some of the weak spots that we're dealing with the Colts is in the defense. I think he gets at least 1 rushing touchdown. Those are my 3 bold predictions for Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer.
I don't think that's an unreasonable thing. I think it would have to be, if he were to get a rushing touchdown, it would have to be like one of those broken plays where he swings out on a wheel and it just kind of runs in because there's a lot of open space. I think he's still a little bit skittish after getting his bell rung by Earl Thomas, but the one time he tried to run the ball last week, he ended up losing like 4 yards. So mobility, he has about as much mobility as Ben Roethlisberger does. So watching him kind of lumber down, trying to pick up 6 or 7 yards is something that, while I would be ecstatic if he did, we'll see if it happens.
We're talking with Kyle Courtney, super Colts fan. Yeah, you didn't know that, did you? Super Steelers fan. Obviously, the Colts and the Steelers. Colts go on the road against the Steelers, and here's the thing. I mean, we won in Kansas City in a very hostile environment. So, yes, if we want to point to statistics, as I pointed out in our soundbite there, games aren't won by statistics, but let's talk a little bit. We'll get into more of the Colts game later on in our NFL segment, but we certainly do want to talk. Maybe we'll piggyback off a local radio station here and know your foes. But Jalen Samuels is going to have to come in and be the workhorse and the Swiss Army knife for the Steelers, seeing as how Connor doesn't look like he's going to play. And Samuels had a huge game as a starter against the New England Patriots, and maybe he can recreate that type of machine workhorse, if you will. Jalen Samuels, what say you, sir?
Yeah, Jalen Samuels, when he was at NC State, he had a weird position. It was like running back / wide receiver / tight end. He never really had he truly was the equivalent of a Swiss Army knife. When he came in last year as a rookie, James Conner really taught him how to be an actual running back. And he had a couple of really, really good games to begin the season. When they went down, they were doing some gimmicky stuff with some wildcat with him and kind of running him out of the slot. But he's a guy that you can literally line up all over the field. He can be a wide receiver. He can do blocking in the backfield. He doesn't have a ton of straight line speed. He's not a big guy like Connor is, so he's not going to have that. That bolt or kind of just dropping 4 and 5 people that try and tackle you quite the same. But he's a good back. I think that he'll be able to make some key plays. I expect him to be a receiver out of the backfield to kind of bail Mason out if things happen. But I mean, we'll see. He did it the one time. He hasn't had a history of being able to be that workhorse back in Pittsburgh, so there's a lot of question marks there. And I think that for them, the smartest thing is going to be to try and keep Mason in positive situations, so that he's not having to try and completely shoulder that load all by himself.
What about Little Watts? I mean, I know we got 3 Watts in the NFL. They're all brothers, but we got Little Watt there with the Steelers. What are your thoughts?
Would you believe that he was the 30th pick in the first round?
You wouldn't, would you?
Would you believe that and watch? No, I mean he's the fact that people were calling him like a second or a third round pick, and he has absolutely been a monster on this team. He is probably he is an absolute game wrecker. One of his plays last week, he sacked Ryan Fitzpatrick, stole the ball from him while he was flipping over Ryan Fitzpatrick and got the fumble recovery. It was just premium Watt. And it's stuff that you've seen JJ do for years and years and years. And TJ in his third season is coming out swinging like a legitimate defensive player of the year type of guy. So we'll see if he is able to continue that dominance. But people have just not been able to stop him.
Juju Showstar, what say you?
Juju's had an interesting season. He obviously, this was his first season without Antonio Brown. So a lot of it was, there were a lot of question marks going into the season of whether or not he could be a legitimate number 1 receiver. I think a lot of those stats have been, I would consider some of those stats not super accurate because he's had to play with 3 different quarterbacks this season in 7 games. But last week he had a couple of just nasty catches over the Miami Dolphins, one where he literally took the ball out of the cornerback's hand and fell in for a touchdown. And those are the type of the things that you look at and go, okay, Juju's got it. I think this is going to be a big learning year for him. As his younger receivers start to be more effective, that's going to take a little bit of the pressure off of him. And that's what I expect. I think he's had some bumps and bruises this season at learning to be a number 1 receiver. But I think that by the end of the season, he'll be exactly where he needs to be. And he'll just be all the better for it being forged in the fire that he's seen. So he's an incredible playmaker.
Let's not forget one of the key. Of course, it's this way. It's that way with the Colts. It's that way in Kansas City. It's that way in Seattle. It's that way in New England. But by far, when you go into Heinz Field, the fans play a big, major role with all their waving of the towels, that stupid song they play. The fans.
That'd be Renegade that you're speaking about.
Yeah, that song.
That song. Yeah.
I couldn't remember what it was. I was going to actually play that, but I couldn't remember what it was. But either which way, they have a way of keeping their fans loud and proud. And one of the things that the Colts defense has to do is to quiet that crowd. how big of a role when you've been to Heinz Field? I've never been there, but when you go in there, how big of a part do you think that the fans are playing the game? It's very, very huge. It's a hard stadium to win in, and then you have the weather elements as well. The Steelers are blue collar, hardcore, to the bone fans, and they will stick it out, and they will stick by their team, and they will be loud and proud. The Colts have to shut down that crowd quickly in order to see somewhat of a successful day tomorrow.
It's a fun stadium. My gift from my wife after we got married was to fly from Nashville, Tennessee to Pittsburgh the following day to go to a 1:00 game. So it was a long 12 hours. But going to that game, they played the Titans, and man, like they have one of the best fan experiences getting up to the game. And that wasn't just me being a homer. I've been to like 5 or 6 NFL stadiums at this point, and that is the best fan experience that I've ever had. They're just going in, everybody is super excited about the game. Everybody is when touchdowns happen, they go crazy. The music operators really can get people going a lot more, but I'm not kidding. When Renegade hits, it's like a whole different level. The team like everybody just starts going bonkers for this like 1972 Styx song that has been a staple of the team since 2001. And when that comes on, the entire crowd just goes absolutely bonkers. And a lot of times it happens during a key defensive stand. And I think they've done all types of stats that have gone up, but very rarely does a team do well on that drive, to the point where there have been multiple sacks, multiple interceptions, multiple big plays the defense has played, just because it's like that energy gets back into the team. And when it's the fourth down, when you're tired, or fourth quarter, you're tired, your team's tired, that little bit of spark sometimes is all you need to really kind of finish the game. And the Steelers fans have a really, really good way of putting that spark back into the team.
It's called? It's Renegade by Styx, right?
That's correct.
All right, we'll get that up on our social media. Melissa handles our social media. Melissa, when you get a chance, throw that up there on our social media. I was trying to find it. I just couldn't remember the name of the song. Yeah, you're right. It's a great pump-up song. Kyle Courtney's joined us today to talk with us about the Steelers and the Colts. Kyle, let's wrap it up, put a bow on it. Give us the X's and the O's, the dark horses, if you will. Certainly you've got the home field advantage. Certainly you're the favorite. But let's not fall asleep on the Indianapolis Colts. And you know how much I follow the Colts. I know you live here in town as well. Even though you're a Steelers fan, you live here in town. So you know the Colts are doing some good things. So the Steelers still have to be prepared for the Indianapolis Colts. What are some of your final thoughts and words of wisdom about tomorrow's game, the Colts and the Steelers?
Absolutely. If the Colts want to win this game, they really have to rely on a short passing game. The Steelers have historically and are continuing to do so, are running a nice zone system. So they're going to have to move the ball. They're going to have to move it in 6, 8, 10-yard chunks to get down the field. And then once they get in the red zone, they're going to have to be efficient. That's something that the Colts have done pretty well. And they've had to balance running the ball. They've had the ability to actually run the ball, which is something that Colts fans haven't been able to say for a really long time. But Marlon Mack's a legit and dangerous back. But Steelers have a really, really, really good defensive front seven that has shut down pretty much every team's running game. So if they can figure out a way to run the ball against them and have a balanced offense and do a short passing game, then they'll have a good day on offense. On defense, the Colts have to rattle Mason and ratchet up Juju. I think if they can shut down the running game and really put Mason on blast, they'll be able to kind of feed off of him in the backfield. And so that if I'm the Colts, I'm really making sure that my man defense is sound and that I can handle all the receivers and all the different stunts and changes that the Steelers are going to throw at them. In looking at it, though, and this is a little bit of the homer in me, because if T.Y. Hilton was playing, I would probably be a little bit more bullish on the Colts. But as it stands, I think this is I think it's a 28-24 game. I think that the Steelers pull out, like end up with like a 14-point lead at some point, and then the Colts have to kind of fight their way back into the game. But